In August 2014, days before my 10th birthday, I saw the first poster for The Flash. I'd never heard of The Flash or the Arrowverse before, but seeing it ignited something in me that I hadn't felt since watching the Avengers 2 years earlier. There was a tagline written in small print on that poster: "Discover what makes a hero." Now, with the show over after 9 seasons and a famously sharp decline, no one really talks about The Flash anymore. When I showed my girlfriend the show for the first time this year, I was nervous. I was worried it wouldn't hold up, that it would feel slow or dated, or like I was just being nostalgic. And the show wasn't good. It was actually way better than I remembered. And the reason why is something Marvel have been trying and failing at for years. It's understanding that character comes first, and everything else serves that. There are loads of opinions about origin stories in superhero media, with loads of people saying they're just sick of it. And you know what? I completely understand, especially with characters like Spider-Man, whose origin is reset every few years. But for a lot of people, this show introduced them to the Flash for the very first time. And even on rewatch in the context of later seasons, Barry's origin didn't feel stale. The reason why is what I'd call emotional architecture. Barry loses both of his parents. His mother is killed right in front of him, and his father is imprisoned wrongly for her murder. And that becomes the wound, the foundational thing that shapes everything about who Barry Allen is going to become. His closeness to his family, his career as a CSI, and his need to solve his mother's murder as if it's consumed his entire life. Barry understands loss and injustice, and he understands what happens when the system fails you. Then he gets struck by lightning and becomes the Flash. But what actually matters is that the power doesn't fundamentally change who he is, it just gives him a tool to pursue what he was already driven to pursue. He gets his powers and almost immediately starts using them to solve his mother's murder and fight crime, because that's who Barry has always been at his core. The best characters all work this exact same way. They have believable experiences that shape who they are, so when they act, we don't question it. We know the fundamental things that make them tick, and that's what makes them so interesting. That's what separates a character who feels real from one that feels hollow. Once Barry gets his powers, the show settles into a structure that's been critiqued to death: the villain of the week format. Barry fights different metahumans, and the main plot gets peppered in throughout. And people call it filler, and I get that, because on paper the structure sounds really weak, but in Season 1 it's actually at its strongest, and the reason is really specific. Barry is still learning what he's capable of. Because he doesn't understand his powers yet, every time he faces a new metahuman, he discovers something new not just about his powers, but about himself. When he first does the supersonic punch, it's more than a cool visual, it means something real for him. It means Barry's finally fast enough that he can generate force through pure velocity. The discoveries are exhilarating because we're exhilarated right along with him. We're running alongside the Flash, and just like him, we're learning about the depths of his power. But the deeper sophistication is this. The villains of the week aren't just random obstacles to overcome, they threaten the people Barry actually cares about, and through those threats, through the conflicts that arise, we learn more about Barry, his values, and his supporting cast. Joe becomes more defined as a father figure, Iris becomes more than just a love interest, Caitlin and Cisco become real people, real friends with their own stakes in the story. The villain of the week structure works because each fight teaches us something new about the characters we already care about. And then there's Harrison Wells. From the beginning, he's portrayed as a bit shady. There's something off about him. When he's finally revealed as the Reverse Flash in The Man in the Yellow Suit, it works not just as shock value, but as exhilaration, because it answers a question we've been asking the entire time. The audience has been watching carefully, and we've always been suspicious. The show confirms something we suspected, but immediately complicates it even more. The mystery of how this is even possible becomes the foundational mystery for the rest of the season, and that's incredibly effective character work. They replace one question with 1,000 more. Now, Reverse Flash is an interesting character because he works on multiple levels at once. On the surface, he follows the rule of cool. His voice is terrifying, he has red glowing eyes, and he has that classic helicopter sounding vibration.
Dr. Wells, we made it last.
When he's on screen, the tone completely shifts. He feels like a genuine threat in a way the other villains just don't. But the real genius is what lies underneath. Eobard Thawne is obsessed with Barry Allen, but not for the reason we might think. He's from the future, in a world where Barry Allen became the Flash, and that Flash is a legend. Eobard idolized him, but then something happened that turned all of that worship into hatred. Eobard learned that he was destined to become Barry's greatest villain, and he's so petty that he ran back in time to kill Barry before he could ever become the Flash in the first place, but instead he had to settle for killing Barry's mum. And so he kills Barry's mother instead, thinking the trauma will be so bad that Barry will never become the Flash. But that's not what happens. The trauma doesn't break Barry, it drives him. Now Eobard is stuck in the past without a way to go home, so he needs Barry to become the Flash so he can steal his speed and escape. He's forced to mentor the man that he hates. He's forced to help create the hero he came back in time to kill. And that is so compelling, because the battle between Barry and the Reverse Flash isn't really about who's faster, it's an ideological battle about what it means to be human. Eobard has dedicated his entire life to controlling the past and engineering the future, to ensuring that everything goes according to a plan. But Barry represents something Eobard can't control: growth, change, and progress. Everything Eobard has spent decades trying to prevent, and because Eobard is connected to Barry through so many different threads, the stakes ripple throughout the entire cast. Joe gained Barry as a stepson because Eobard killed his mother, but he also lost the chance to see Henry Allen's life unfold naturally. Iris loves Eddie Thorne, but Eddie is Eobard's ancestor, so Eobard's existence is predicated on Eddie's genetic line. Caitlin gained this new family through Team Flash, but her fiancé Ronnie died in circumstances connected to Wells. Cisco gained confidence, and almost like a father figure in Wells, but now he has to grapple with the fact that everything Wells has been doing has been a lie. Everyone in the show has something they've gained and something they've lost at the hands of the Reverse Flash, so everyone is defined by him in some way. And that is really sophisticated character work. It's a villain whose existence shapes the entire cast, not just Barry. All of their failures feel like they're because of him, and all of their successes feel like they defy him. And here's where it gets brilliant. At the end of the season, Barry gets the chance to run back in time and save his mother. He stands there at the moment of her murder, and he's about to intervene, and then the future version of himself tells him not to do it. And Barry chooses to listen. He chooses to let his mother die, even though he has the power to prevent it. And that's the moment. That's when the genius of this season becomes clear, because at that moment, Barry understands something that Eobard never will. He understands that growth can't be controlled. You can't engineer your own destiny. You can't go back and fix everything that broke you. Sometimes you have to accept pain as part of who you are and move forward anyway. And then Eddie makes a choice. Eddie, who spent the season as what seems like just a pretty boy love interest, reveals that he's been paying attention, and he chooses to kill himself to erase Eobard from the timeline. It's an earned sacrifice. It's the moment where a character who felt hollow becomes real. This is what frustrates me about how The Flash is remembered now. The show declined pretty badly. The later seasons are rough, but because of that decline, people retroactively convinced themselves that season 1 wasn't as good as they thought. They convinced themselves they were just being nostalgic. But the truth is that season 1 did something superhero television and film keeps failing to do. It understood that a punch has no weight without emotion underneath it. Every fight feels incredible because they matter emotionally. We understand what's at stake. We know why Barry is fighting and what it costs him to do what he needs to do. The Flash season 1 is the blueprint because it understands you don't need a huge budget or massive sets to make something that actually resonates. You just need to understand your characters really deeply and let their decisions actually make a difference. It's character first all the way through. That's what makes The Flash season 1 better than you remember. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe and consider becoming a channel member. And if you want to see how I'd write Doctor Doom in the MCU, click the video on your screen right now. See you next week.